Live from London, this is BBC News. Medics in Gaza say 6 newborn babies have died from hypothermia in a 2-week period. South Korea's Jeju Air says it will strengthen safety measures after one of its planes crashed on Sunday, killing almost everyone on board. The ambulance service in Wales declares a critical incident after an increase in demand causes significant delays. Severe weather warnings across the UK. Stormy weather has already led to the cancellation of Edinburgh's famous New Year outdoor Hogmanay events. And 2025 kicks off in Auckland. This is The Scene Live as New Zealanders celebrate the new year. Hello, I'm Nicky Schiller. Welcome to the programme, and I want to take you straight back to those live pictures from Auckland in New Zealand as they welcome in 2025. The fireworks are going off there from the Sky Tower in Auckland. This is 328 metres tall. It is the highest in the Southern Hemisphere. Let's have a listen in to the celebrations in New Zealand. So this display will last around 5 minutes. We're told that there is more than half a tonne of fireworks and pyrotechnics that are launched from 3 sites on the Sky Tower. There you can see the image of those fireworks coming out of all angles from that tower across the city of Auckland. As I said, 328 metres tall. They began planning for this 5 months ago, so it has taken a while to come up with this. Of course, they are not the first place to welcome in the new year. That was an hour ago when the island nation of Kiribati in Oceania became the first country in the world to have entered 2025. It is made up of 33 atolls and occupies a vast area of the Pacific Ocean, nearly 4,000 kilometres from east to west. It actually has a number of time zones, but it's marking 20 years since they changed the time zone across the international date line, which meant that they now celebrate an hour ago. And there we can see New Zealand welcoming in the new year. If you want to continue to watch those fireworks, then you can see that there's a QR code on the right-hand side of your screen. You can scan that, and throughout the day here on BBC News, we will be streaming fireworks from around the world live. So those ones from Auckland will continue on that QR code, and in a couple of hours' time, it is one of the big ones because, of course, Australia will welcome in the new year in about just under 2 hours' time. There's already been a Fanworks firework display near the Opera House in Sydney Harbour Bridge, so the children can enjoy the fireworks, but there is going to be the main event with Robbie Williams performing in Australia in a couple of hours. But they're the live pictures from Auckland in New Zealand as they welcome in 2025. You're with BBC News, and we're going to turn our attention now to the Middle East, because in just over a week, 6 babies in Gaza have died from the cold weather. That's according to the Hamas-controlled health authorities. With hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians living in tents and temperatures expected to drop further in the coming days. The news comes as a new report by the United Nations says Israel's attacks on hospitals in Gaza have had a catastrophic effect on Palestinians' access to healthcare, raising serious concerns about war crimes and crimes against humanity. Israel doesn't allow the BBC independent access into Gaza, but our correspondent Amir Nader has worked with 2 freelance camera operators in Gaza who met families who've lost their loved ones. And just a warning, you may find some of the scenes in his report upsetting.
Baby Lowe was just 20 days old when her father, Mahmoud, couldn't wake her.
In the morning, I found her stiff, like wood. I took her to the hospital, and they told me, your daughter has been dead for an hour due to the cold. I have no clothes, no food, no drink. Only God knows our condition.
Sila was seen by Dr. Ahmed Al-Farah.
She suffered from severe hypothermia, leading to the cessation of vital signs, cardiac arrest, and eventually death. Yesterday as well, 2 cases were brought in. One was a 3-day-old baby, and the other was less than a month old. The cause of this is life in the tents.
Mahmoud's family have been displaced over 10 times throughout the war. Here in Mawasi camp, tens of thousands of Gaza's nearly 2 million displaced live on the beach, suffering from the winter and flooding from the rain and the sea, with almost no infrastructure and a lack of food. Amid heavy restrictions by Israel on aid deliveries to Gaza, says the United Nations, Israel denies it restricts aid.
I felt heartbroken for her because of the conditions. I did everything I could to keep her warm, but I couldn't manage to do so.
Without a phone, the family doesn't have a single photo of Sila when she was alive. Only 3 weeks of memories and little Sila's clothes.
I never thought I would give birth living in a tent in such cold and freezing conditions, with water dripping on us. Water leaks into the tent, pouring down on us. At times, we had to run to escape the water for the baby's sake.
On Sunday, another tragic case. Baby Juma also didn't make it longer than 20 days.
Touch with your hand. He's frozen. Frozen. All 8 of us. We don't have 4 blankets. What can I do? I see my children dying in front of me. My children are dying in front of me.
In just over a week, 6 babies in Gaza have died from the cold weather, local health officials have said. Under the sound of Israeli drones above, Mahmoud carried Sila's lifeless body to a makeshift graveyard.
We're all sick. Our chests hurt, and we have colds from the cold. All sick. Our chests hurt, and we have colds from the cold and rain. If we didn't die from the war, we're dying from the cold.
As the winter cold becomes more harsh and merciless, another preventable death in Gaza, where the youngest are suffering most from the cruelties of war. Mia Nada, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Well, let's talk more about this with Hamish Young. He is the Senior Emergency Coordinator in Gaza for UNICEF and joins us live from Har Yunis. Thank you very much for joining us on BBC News. I just wondered, how common are the stories like we heard in Amir's report of a baby dying from the cold where you are?
Thanks, Nikki. Unfortunately, tragically common. I think I'm sure you know, the total death toll for children in Gaza since the war started here is around 15,000. It's a tragedy laid on top of another tragedy. I just heard that the latest count from reported by the ministry is 6 from hypothermia. I hate to say it, but I wouldn't be surprised to learn that there's more. The weather here is atrocious, it's not just the low temperatures. There's a gale blowing in off the Mediterranean. That creates a wind chill factor that really pushes temperatures down. It's raining heavily, very much at the moment. We're very cold. I don't know if you can see I'm wearing a ski parka at the moment, and I'm in a solid, substantial building. So the impact of this weather is tough on anyone. But we're talking about extremely vulnerable populations. We're talking about people living in tents under plastic sheeting, and these are people who have been moved around, displaced by the war many, many times. So the shelter they do have is heavily degraded. They've put it up and torn it down and put it up and torn it down many times. It's in a really difficult shape. And obviously children are acutely vulnerable to this, and especially newborns and especially premature and low weight babies. And given, as your last speaker just mentioned, the massively degraded state of the healthcare system here, sadly, there's a lot of malnutrition, disease rates are much higher, living conditions are poor, sanitary conditions are poor, which means that there are a lot of low birth weight and premature children trying to live and survive in these tents and plastic sheeting.
Are you able to offer any help? Are you managing to get in things like blankets for them to at least try to keep warm?
We are. We're trying to bring in tents, plastic sheeting, and baby clothes kits. UNICEF, we brought in 60,000 tarpaulins this month, December. We've distributed 40,000 so far. But there's another backlog of several hundred thousand between all the different agencies, UNRWA, IOM, and UNICEF ourselves, because there's a limited amount of supply that we can get in, and it's a matter of prioritisation. We've still got to bring food in, we've still got to bring equipment in for water supply and sanitation, hygiene, etc., etc. But we are bringing in winterisation, tarps, tents, etc. We also recently brought in some baby clothes kits, kits for newborns, and I actually personally went to NASA Hospital, to the paediatric ICU there, and distributed a number of them there. But it was interesting to learn, just at that hospital alone, there's 20 to 30 babies born per day. So the amount of kits we're bringing in is not nearly enough. Perhaps, Nikki, if I could just mention one other initiative that we're taking, which is very much comes out on communications, and this is caring practices, because in addition to the baby clothes, the blankets, the tarps, there are certain practices that people can take that they're not really familiar with here, because the population of Gaza is largely an urban population. They've been living in buildings up until this war started. That's the practice of kangaroo care, it's called, which is really simple, ensuring babies have skin-to-skin contact and are swaddled with a mum or a dad. That's another practice that we're rapidly rolling out and promoting, which we hope will save lives of these babies.
Okay.
Perhaps I can also just say, Nikki, all of this is just a band-aid. What is needed desperately in Gaza is a ceasefire. The only thing that's really going to save children on large scale is a ceasefire.
Hamish Young from UNICEF there in Har Yunis. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Nikki.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, a new report by the United Nations Human Rights Office says Israel's attacks on hospitals in Gaza have had a catastrophic effect on Palestinians' access to healthcare, raising serious concerns about war crimes and crimes against humanity. Let's get more on the report with our correspondent Imogen Fuchs. So, Imogen, what else does this report from the UN say?
Well, this is a very detailed report, a good 24 pages long, and it looks at not the immediate period, it looks at the period from October 23 to the end of June of this year, and it catalogues a pattern, really, of attack, besiege, invade, evacuate hospitals in Gaza by Israeli forces. It says that patients have died as a result or even been killed, medical staff taken away, detained, some reports of torture there, and basically that the systematic, this report claims, destruction of these hospitals has been catastrophic for the population of Gaza, who basically, as you heard, you were talking to UNICEF just now, other of the basic elements to sustain human life are systematically been taken away, and one of these is healthcare. Taken away, and one of these is healthcare.
Imogen Fuchs live in Geneva. Thank you very much. We should say that Israel says that it's facilitated the entry into Gaza of almost 10,000 tonnes of winter-related aid over the past 3 months. You can, of course, get more on the situation in Gaza and the Middle East on the BBC News website and app. Now here, the ambulance service in Wales has declared a critical incident after an increase in demand caused significant delays. The NHS Trust said that at one stage, hundreds of calls were waiting to be answered and ambulances were left queuing outside hospitals. Jordan Davis has been monitoring events for us in Cardiff and gave us the latest on the situation.
It's a reflection of the sheer pressure on emergency services in Wales at the moment. As we heard there, 340 calls at one point yesterday evening went unanswered because of the pressure on the service across the country. Couple that with the fact that almost half of all ambulances in Wales were waiting outside hospitals to hand over patients. Hospitals were full because of COVID and winter flu. They haven't been able to discharge patients, so they weren't able to provide beds and they weren't able to provide clinicians to see patients, so those patients have to remain in ambulances. Now, this morning we heard from the Chief Executive of the Welsh Ambulance Service, Jason Killins. He apologised for long delays, but he said he expects this pressure to continue into today and tomorrow.
The whole health and social care system does plan for winter because we know it's going to be pressured. But what we have seen in the last 24 to 48 hours is an acute accumulation of much of those pressures, and perhaps more of it coming together than was initially foreseen. We've got plans in place across the NHS to manage surges in activity, but the pressure we saw yesterday across the whole of the urgent and emergency care pathway led to that acute situation where we were unable to respond as quickly as we wanted to. That's why we declared the critical incident to call on partners for assistance.
Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. You're with BBC News, and it's time for us to get a check on the day's sport with John Watson. He's at the Sports Centre. Hi, John.
Thanks for joining us, Nikki. We begin with news of Wayne Rooney, the former Manchester United player, now manager, who's been sacked from his role with Plymouth Argyle. He was appointed as the head coach of the Championship side in May on a 3-year deal, but after leading the side for just 25 matches and having only overseen 5 victories, he's departed. It was his third stint managing a side in English football's second tier, following spells with Derby County and Birmingham City, and one which has now come to a disappointing conclusion. The club are currently rooted to the bottom of the table and facing relegation. There's been a warning from the current Manchester United manager, Ruben Amorim, that the club could face relegation from the Premier League this season. The Portuguese coach has overseen 5 league defeats since joining the club, with in-form Newcastle United inflicting their most recent, winning 2-0 at Old Trafford. It means Manchester United will end the year 14th, 7 points above the relegation zone, with a warning things could get even worse for the club.
The worst moments in the history of our club, and you have to accept that another loss in front of our supporters, Newcastle was better.
And looking at the table at the moment, Ruben, it doesn't look at all pretty. You're edging ever closer to the relegation zone. Do you feel as though it might be a battle to avoid the drop that's going to unfold in the second half of the season?
I think it's a possibility, and we have to be clear with our fans. So we have to change something.
Well, elsewhere, there were scenes of celebration as Ipswich Town won their first home game of the season. They beat fourth-placed Chelsea 2-0.
Yeah, one of the best nights. We've been, I won't say lucky because I think you earn your luck, but we've been privileged to have a lot of good nights, but that's certainly up there. First win at Portman Road in the Premier League in 22 years. Special one for the players and the supporters and everyone involved.
Wolverhampton Wanderers forward Mateus Cunha has been suspended for 2 games and fined £80,000 following their Premier League fixture against Ipswich Town this month. He was charged with misconduct after it was alleged he acted in an improper manner after the final whistle here. He admitted the charge and will now miss 2 matches, with the club themselves trying to avoid relegation. Italy confirmed their place in the United Cup quarter-final after beating France 3-0 in Sydney on Tuesday. Flavio Cobolli had put Italy ahead before Yasmin Paolini clinched the victory with a convincing win over Chloe Paquette, 6-love, 6-2. And a mixed doubles win made it 3-0. They will face the winner of Group F, which could be decided by Great Britain against Australia. That match staged tomorrow. The USA confirmed their place in the last 8, beating Croatia. Coco Gauff, sealing victory, beating Donna Vekic. The Americans then won the mixed doubles and will face China next on New Year's Day in Perth. Nikola Jokic and Russell Westbrook with the stars as the Denver Nuggets won at Utah Jazz on Monday night. The pair both achieved triple-doubles, Jokic with 36 points, 22 rebounds and 11 assists. Westbrook's number not quite as triple-doubles, Jokic with 36 points, 22 rebounds and 11 assists. Westbrook's number not quite as good with 16 points, 10 rebounds and 10 assists, but still impressive and crucial as well in some key moments that saw them to a 132-121 win. Cleveland Cavaliers won convincingly at Golden State Warriors. That extended their winning streak to 7. They pulled away in the 3rd and 4th quarters to win by 113-95. Darius Garland top scoring with 25 points. And that, Nikki, is all from the BBC Sports Centre for now. It's back to you.
Thanks very much, John. To South Korea now, and the latest on Sunday's deadly plane crash. The chief executive of Jeju Air has given a news conference where he said he was committed to strengthening the company's safety and maintenance procedures. It follows that crash which killed 179 passengers and crew. Plane crash investigators have started to inspect the plane's 2 black boxes, but the flight recorder has been damaged. 4 of the victims' bodies have now been released to their families, and they will today begin the funerals, which will last around 3 days, but most families are still waiting.
I'm sorry, but there are 5 people who have not been identified yet. They need more precise testing for results, and I've heard it is due to various reasons. For those 5, we will try our best and deliver the results before the end of the day.
Flood warnings are in force for parts of northern Scotland, and Edinburgh's world-famous outdoor New Year's celebrations have already been cancelled. Amber and yellow warnings for rain, snow and high winds are still in place for many other areas. Officials in London are monitoring the weather ahead of tonight's sold-out fireworks display on the banks of the River Thames, and Blackpool's event has already been cancelled. Well, our Scotland correspondent Katrina Renton is in Edinburgh with more on those Hogmanay cancellations.
You can see how windy it is here. It's been very heavy rain here this morning as well, although we're getting a little bit of respite from that at the moment. But as you can see, the conditions are not good, and that is why organisers here had to cancel the outdoor events, the world-famous street party, the concert in Princes Street Gardens that was due to be headlined by Texas, the Scottish rock band, of course, and of course those spectacular fireworks that bring in the bells every year, but sadly not this year. Now, the last time that this happened, when the outdoor events were cancelled because of adverse weather, was back in 2006. So it's not something that happens very often, and of course there's massive disappointment, but organisers here have done this with a heavy heart. But you can see how difficult it would be today to be preparing in these conditions, and of course safety has to come first. far. So it looks like the weather actually will have cleared up quite significantly by midnight tonight. But the problem is today. And if you look at where we are just now, you can see that it's not ideal. Now, I've been in the city centre. I've been talking to people who've come here from all over the world to see in Hogmanay, of course, to be here for Hogmanay, and of course to see in the new year. I've met people from Australia, from Malaysia, who came here, and of course they're disappointed, but of course also understanding. And the thing that I've been able to cheer them up with, of course, is that here in Scotland is, in my opinion, the best place to spend Hogmanay, and you don't need to be outside to enjoy it. There's plenty of things to do inside too, and the indoor events that were organised for Edinburgh's Hogmanay are still going ahead. So, you know, there's plenty to do, there's plenty to enjoy, but just, of course, keeping safe, and that street party, the thing that people do look forward to and do come from all over the world to be involved in, is not going ahead.
Katrina Renton. Now, they were once the Hollywood power couple with the nickname Brangelina. Well, now, 8 years after they separated, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie have reached a divorce settlement. A lawyer for the actress confirmed that the pair had managed to come to a deal. So far, his lawyers have not publicly commented. The couple got married in 2014 and have 6 children. Now, finally, this half hour, I want to leave you with those lovely pictures out of New Zealand, which has become the latest place to welcome in the new year. They did it with traditional fireworks, as you can see, from the city's iconic Sky Tower. And they've been enjoying the first few minutes of 2025. Throughout the day, we will take you to the fireworks around the world. In about 90 minutes, it'll be the time of Sydney with their world famous display. So do stay with us here on BBC News.
Hello. The weather will continue to have impacts for some on this last day of 2024. We still have a Met Office amber warning, for instance, in around Fort William, Inverness and Aviemore for heavy rain. But actually weather conditions will slowly improve here. We'll see the persistent rain ease into the afternoon. There will be some heavy showers, though the most persistent rain will be in the far north of Scotland with strong and gusty winds. Southern Scotland, Northern Ireland continue to brighten up and turn a bit drier and less windy. Northern England, North and West Wales, deteriorating weather through the afternoon, more in the way of persistent rain, especially in the northwest of both, and strong and gusty winds. Further south, stays dry, blustery, and for many, mild end to the year. We'll see that rain, though, persist across parts of Northern England, Wales and the North Midlands into the midnight hours we see in the brand new year. Strong and gusty winds with it, and to the south. To the north of that, we see in the new year on a colder note, rain, sleet and snow here, which means icy conditions to start New Year's Day. That colder air pushing its way southwards, but at least for much of the day, South Wales, central southern England, a spell of heavy rain, gusty winds pushing its way southwards and temperatures dropping throughout. So whilst it does brighten up from North Wales, Northern England northwards, with a few wintry showers around, it will feel much, much colder to end New Year's Day. And that is the start of a spell of really cold air to seize the rest of the week out. Arctic air coming down from the north to all parts as we head through into Thursday. So it does mean as we start Thursday, after a very cold start, there'll be a widespread frost and the risk of some ice around, especially where you see the wet weather clear latest, and indeed where you've got wintry showers to start the day. Snow showers, in fact, northern Scotland, some close to these eastern coastal counties of England, Northern Ireland, and maybe 1 or 2 into North Wales and the Isle of Man as well. Many, though, Thursday will be a bright and sunny day, but in the wind it will feel cold. This is what it will feel like out there, exposed to the wind, as low as -6 wind chill in parts of the wind, as low as -6 wind chill in parts of the far northeast of Scotland. That cold air sits in place then through Thursday night into Friday, so another frost and ice risk, but with a few weather fronts coming down in that northerly floor, there'll be a bit more cloud, greater chance of some showers inland Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England and North Wales. Again, a mixture of rain, sleet and snow, giving a slight dusting over the hills. For the south, stays sunny, but for all, Friday, another cold day.
Women. We make up half the world we inhabit, yet take up half the space we deserve. Told we talk too much, yet never heard enough. Told lower your voice, be spoken over, be silenced, be invisible. Women, natural-born storytellers, pearls of wisdom, fighting talk, heart-to-hearts, all mother tongues, speaking up, speaking out, speaking truth to power, quietly active or loudly roaring. Every woman has a story to tell. Let's hear them. 100 Women, a series of inspiring stories across the BBC. Watch on iPlayer.
The day's most important stories, sent every weekday direct to your inbox. Get the news you need to know and understand what it means for you. Don't miss out. Stay informed. Go to bbc.co.uk/newsdaily and sign up now.
I'm telling you, there's going to be a revolution.
Have you considered resigning over this? Because you're clearly embarrassed.
Of course, I have been. I have thought about this.
We have now the best or most sophisticated information technology in history, and people are no longer able to talk with each other or to agree on the most basic facts.
I want to be totally honest with you, and I am being honest with you.
At least this should be a common ground for everyone. We should defend international law.
In the spirit of your title of Hard Talk, you're completely wrong.
I'm not offended, but I want to hear why.
You're completely wrong.
Hard Talk. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
Hello, if you've just joined us, you're with BBC News. It is 11:30. I'll have a full bulletin of news for you at midday. In the meantime, here's Path to the Presidency. Year in review.
This is not the 12 days of Christmas. This is the 12 months of US politics.
You are wearing a very Christmassy outfit.
I am, and I can make it more Christmassy. Look, I've got my little elf hat. I don't know. It's got a bell, though. Maybe that's...
It's a little distracting.
Is it too noisy for serious conversation?
We were given the memo, dress festive, and I look like the Grinch because all I have in my closet is a green sweater and red earrings. So well done.
Very stylishly Christmas. I've gone... Let me stick this over here.
Oh, that's a shame.
It's
Yeah,
fallen on the floor. That's fine. We'll leave it there. It's the thought that counts.
Exactly. Well, festive indeed. Here we are. We've made it to the end of the year.
Couple of days left to go.
This is a good opportunity to look back at the year that we had.
Yeah, so this is not the 12 days of Christmas. This is the 12 months of US politics. How are we going to fit that into one short episode? But we'll give it a go.
Yeah, ready, set, go. Yeah, let's start with January then. It feels like a lifetime ago, but I remember both of us being very cold because it was the caucus season, and that really was the kickoff to this election year, wasn't it? And you were out in Iowa. There was this massive cold snap so that people couldn't even make it to Iowa for the coverage.
But nevertheless, people came out for that caucus to cast their vote, as they did in many other states.
And it was really important to see those two dominant victories for Trump, both in Iowa and then in New Hampshire, where I was, where there was a lot of speculation about how independents would vote. Would Nikki Haley do well? And in the end, we saw Donald Trump, again, far and away the preferred Republican candidate. And that really just set the path for the rest of the year.
And of course, the Democrats weren't having a competitive primary process there, although Dean Phillips did try to run himself, but it was a done deal for Joe Biden. And then you had that big event, the State of the Union Address, Joe Biden's third, and as we know now, final State of the Union Address. And his past endeavours had been criticised for being quite staid and boring. But this was a point. There were already conversations happening quite loudly about his age, his abilities, whether he had the energy and get up and go to fight the contest. And so he came out really quite fiery.
Now my predecessor, a former Republican president, tells Putin, quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." Bowing down to a Russian leader. I think it's outrageous, it's dangerous, and it's unacceptable.
Really energized. Didn't mention Donald Trump by name, if you remember. He kept referring to my predecessor. I think he said that about 13 times, but very squarely kind of aiming all of his remarks against "I'm not Donald Trump," again using that line about what a threat to American democracy the re-election of Donald Trump would be.
Here's the simple truth. You can't love your country only when you win.
Democrats were feeling really confident and kind of, oh yeah, maybe Joe Biden does have this energy and pizzazz and can carry us on through this campaign.
Where then you get to Super Tuesday, and really it felt like a rubber stamp at that point because we knew that Trump had been so dominant, and we saw him, of course, sweep the Super Tuesday states.
They call it Super Tuesday for a reason. This is a big one. And they tell me, the pundits and otherwise, that there's never been one like this.
And for Joe Biden as well, I remember I was out in California and we were down at the border as well. And it was so clear immigration was going to be such a central topic. And you saw on Super Tuesday, of course, not only those dominant showings for Donald Trump and Joe Biden, but some of those questions being raised about, okay, how are Democrats going to take on this issue of immigration? How are they going to take on the issue of the economy? Because it was clear also in the polling that you saw from Super Tuesday that the economy and affordability were really important points to voters who were casting their ballots there too.
Exactly. I remember being in Pennsylvania ahead of their primary, and that was the number one issue for people. The economy, the affordability of food, how much groceries had gone up. And also the big issue, I remember being in Michigan in April, was around Gaza and the position that Joe Biden and the Democrats were taking in terms of just such fulsome support of Israel.
What's unfolding is greater than just an issue of elections. This is